You're listening to One Bright Star's Life After Loss, a podcast that's focused on the lifelong journey of life after loss, with your hosts Erica Fisher and Alicia Moore. One Bright Star's Life After Loss podcast is sponsored by the law firm of Burkholz and Associates. And now, One Bright Star's Life After Loss podcast.
Hello and welcome to One Bright Star's Life After Loss podcast. I'm Erica Fisher, Executive Director with One Bright Star.
And Alicia Moore, President of One Bright Star.
And today we have our friend Lynn with us. Hi, Lynn.
Hello.
How are you?
I am good. How are you?
I'm very well. So we've chatted with Lynn before about end of life and death and just the different aspects of it and what comes along with that. And Lynn has an amazing job title. One of the titles.
Death Educator.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. So I didn't even know death educators existed until I met Lynn.
It is a thing.
It's
not a well-known thing, and when I say it, a lot of people think I say deaf, D-E-A-F.
Okay.
Oh.
Educator. And then when I correct them and say, nope, it's a T-H at the end, then I get the horrific looks like I don't think we
should talk, right?
No. That but you're such a happy person.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right?
Yes.
See, and that makes you perfect.
Well, my view is different than a lot of other folks.
Why don't you talk about your view?
So my view has always been different, and it's just inherently been that way. No one's ever taken me aside and showed me that this is what it is. I grew up in a very, very strict religion, and when you die, you go to heaven, and that is it. There's no coming back. You're having the time of your life in heaven. You are with God and Jesus, and everyone else is just moving along with their life. And that is how I grew up. And I remember thinking when my grandpa died, I was probably about 12 or 13, that was really sad for me. And
right.
I mean, he was my grandpa, and he meant the world to me. And I thought, how sad is it that he'll never know how I grew up, or if I got married, or if what happened. That just seemed really sad. I thought, wouldn't he, in that 12-year-old self-absorbed state, I thought, why wouldn't he want to come check on me?
Right.
Like, he loved me. Why would he just not ever want to see me again? Was my thought process. So it kind of got tabled and pushed to the side. And I've just always developed those feelings. And then as I got older, you read different books and you watch different TV shows and experiment, with different religions and try things on.
Sure.
And as you do as a young adult. And then when I had my daughter, I was introduced to the spiritual realm of things, which was more like psychic, medium, that type of thing, where, hey, guess what? Turns out they're not really dead. You can talk to them, and some people can do it, and they do it for jobs, and it's pretty great.
It's pretty great.
That, on the flip side of that, then, you have people that just want to take your money, and they don't really know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I took some classes, and I was, as it turns out, a pretty gifted reader, but totally felt inept in all things. I didn't want to be the person delivering messages, but all of a sudden, when I started looking for cues and things, I started to realize that my grandpa had been there the entire time.
Oh, that's so cool.
How did he show you?
So my grandpa to me is, you have two grandpas when you're growing up, and you have to distinguish them.
Yes.
So this was my grandpa Bumblebee. And because he would always come up, I was a roly-poly child, and he would do the little bumblebee bzzz, and then touch my belly button. So he was Grandpa Bumblebee to me. Okay. And that's who he was.
That's
so
fun.
Randomly, through places, you just see bees, and it was before bees are popular. Like, now bees are everywhere.
Right.
But before, they weren't really everywhere, and it wasn't too often that you saw them outside. But then I started to realize, when I started looking for them, that when I was questioning things, or where I was at, or am I really doing things right, or how is this going to happen, I would randomly see bees where they really had no business being.
Okay.
It turns out now that his wife, my grandma, leaves me feathers in random places like the gym floor was where I found my most recent one. And then I found one not too long ago in the middle of our office floor, and I taped it to my computer just so I have a reminder that just because they're not here physically doesn't mean that they're gone. Like, she's still letting me know, hey, I'm checking in on you and you're okay.
You're okay.
It's a little reassurance. That's what I like to think of it as.
Those little signs, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep. My mom will leave me dimes that make no sense.
Okay.
My sister is a nurse, and she was in the hospital, and she had been checking. She is on the COVID floor at her hospital, and it's sad. I mean, it's a terrible wing. Families can't visit the patients, and she's really the only interaction that they have with the outside world for right now. So she was feeling a little, desperate and sad, and it's heavy. And the housekeeper had been in and had cleaned the room and everything else, and Missy was just checking on a patient, and she turned around, and on the windowsill ledge, there was a dime.
Oh.
So, Yep, Mom's there. You're exactly where you need to be, and you're doing what you need to do. She is a gift from God. Like, she just is. She is the nurse of...
Oh, you're talking about your sister.
My sister, yeah.
And she needed that right then and there.
Oh, very much so.
And your mom was able to give that to her. I'd love to hear these stories about signs like this.
Yes.
We will have parents, family members, people that have lost those close to them that will say, oh, I know you don't believe in this, but I felt like Brooks was sitting right next to me when we were in the car the other day. And I'm like, I hear that a lot. Mm-hmm. And so, yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
you
100%.
Hear a song or something that's...
Yes, tell us more. It's really interesting.
So, as I got older and started, contemplating life as you do once you have a child, and then you kind of have to rethink everything again, because then you realize that the world is bigger than you. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how the birth ended up. It doesn't matter how the pregnancy ended up. It doesn't matter what happens 2 years afterwards. You are forever altered by a pregnancy or by a child. Really, it doesn't matter biologically if they're yours or not.
They have an effect on you.
Genetically and chemically speaking, like, they have done tests and studies, and it chemically changes the makeup of your brain.
Okay.
So that type of responsibility just does that in a woman's brain. It just does. And that's scientifically speaking how it is.
Okay.
So I was given a book, and I can't remember the name of it. I'll have to get it to you. But it was the most beautiful book, and I was bawling at the end. So I believe, and it's my belief. I'm not here to tell anybody else what to believe, but I firmly believe that before we're born, our soul chooses the lessons that we're going to learn. Mm-hmm. That's not to say that there are not some fail-safes in place. Some checkout points are available. And if you look back on your life, you can probably see 1 or 2 points where you walked away from an accident and you shouldn't have. Or something really innocent could have ended really wrong. Or you were late for the bus and the bus crashed. Like, we all have heard those stories, things like that. So those to me are... If things aren't going the way that they were supposed to be going, or your soul is deciding it's just not happening this time, it can leave. And it doesn't, but yeah, so that's what I believe. I believe that I picked my parents. As crazy as their story was and how they got together and how things ended up, I picked my parents, and I believe that my kids picked me. And what that looks like for them. Now, does that mean that, they knew what was going to happen, 10, 15 years down the line, how things were going to end? I don't believe that we can comprehend that. And it doesn't mean by any stretch of the imagination that we know how it's going to end. But I believe that we pick certain people and certain events to take place to either reassure us that we're on the right path or to put us back on the right path. And that's just what I believe.
You know, it's interesting in hearing you talk, Lynn, I, with the way I was raised and my religion, I can totally relate to what you're saying. I just think of it as maybe just a little different, in a little different context, but I totally am seeing some of this. They always say, you know, God has a plan for you.
Yep.
And so that's where, when you're saying about, you know, those, you know, you're with people that you should be with because this was the plan. Those near misses, you know, I ran through that stop sign the other day and somebody else did it 2 days later and they didn't make it. And some of those things you're just like, wow. You said something when we first started talking before we had a chance to go on air, and you talked about our souls know when we are going to die. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So we had an unfortunate event. COVID started last March, and in April, my ex-husband, the father of my 3 girls, passed away unexpectedly. He was 49 years old, went to bed, and just never woke up. Wow. He had gotten remarried and had 2 little boys, and they're young, and was doing well. Like we were,
Right.
I mean, we were friends. We were, you know, still talking to each other, and everything was going well. The crazy thing is even though our physical bodies and brains have no idea what is happening, our souls know. Our souls know, especially in an event like that, where it was his last day. And I've been through an exercise where, what are the 3 best things? Like, what are the 3 best things, you know, that you could do in a day? And you think about it, and that's okay. That's great for our physical bodies to know. But I firmly believe that his last day, he had his 3 best things. I mean, it was COVID, so his neighborhood threw a bingo party outside. So everybody was social distanced, and they were outside, and they were playing bingo, and he was playing bingo and getting together with friends and neighbors, and he spent all day with the kids. And then, you know, they had a fun dinner, and he gave the boys baths and sent them to bed. I mean, it sounds so simplistic. It was just another Saturday.
But surrounded by the people he loved the
But
most.
surrounded, exactly. And that was one of those instances where that's what COVID provided us, really, was time with family. Because typically you'd be running in 19 different directions. You know, the girls were in high school and college, and one would be here and the other one would be there, and the boys would have something. Or, you know, it's just one of those things where, okay, it's a Saturday, I have to run to the grocery store.
Yes.
Well, we didn't have that.
Yeah, you're right.
We didn't have the grocery store to go to. We didn't have, you know, the children's museum or any of those normal Saturday activities. That's what happened. I mean,
that's a really, really good way to put it, because you hear COVID and everybody's like, oh, you know, the year that we had to quarantine, and there's negativity with it, obviously, but that's a really good way to put it.
It is.
And I think that this last year and a half, and who knows what's happening coming up, but I think that's how we really need to, instead of being so angry about it, you have to really reframe how you look at it and what it affords you.
Yes,
I agree. It affords you time with your family.
Yes.
It affords you time that, I mean, I know with my husband and the girls, and my in-laws, there were activities that we did together more often that we weren't able to. I have a beautiful fire pit in my backyard.
Right.
And Jamie and I didn't even kill each other.
Right.
It was delightful. We were so tired and sweaty, but I mean, you have to really, truly think and reframe things. And that's part of the reason why people have, I think, you know, they think of me, and I'm such a happy, upbeat, go-lucky person. And the fact that I'm a death educator is really odd, because death is sad, and it's the end, and it's horrific.
But you have another view that you're able to share.
So my view of death is transition. It's not the end. And that's where the doula piece comes in, because birth doulas are becoming more prevalent and more widely accepted, and you have that. And really, that's the transition. I mean, it's the transition of birth. So, you know, when we look at life, a lot of people look at timelines. going from left to right.
Okay. Yes.
Well, our life is actually a circle.
Okay.
It is.
It's a circle. It's if you look at how you started, and you can make it as simple as sometimes so we start in diapers, and sometimes you end in them.
Diapers. Yes.
I mean, it's funny, lighthearted, but really, truly, you have to think about everything that your body has done for you. And everything that your body does for you. And and I am guilty 110% of not enjoying my body. 110%. But I had to actually stop in front of the mirror the other day and thank my legs for making it through CrossFit at 5 o'clock in the morning. And I was still able to walk at 8 o'clock at night.
Kudos.
Yes, exactly.
But you think of everything think of what your feet do. You know, I mean, that's what your life is. I mean, your body is here for a finite time. We're not meant to be invincible. We're not meant to live 110 years. It's crazy to me that doctors and scientists think that we are. We're just not. Our souls are meant to live that long, and I'm one of those people that believes in reincarnation. But our souls are meant to be infinite, but our bodies are not. Our bodies are here to be a vessel for us to learn the things that we need to learn, and whether that means that we learn some hard lessons about how to treat people with a different color skin than we have, or different color hair, or disabilities, or there was a gentleman that I interviewed today. He only had sight in one eye, and he was older, and I said, well, that's a feature that you have. And he goes, a feature? And I go, I know you probably don't think of it that way, and you probably think of it as a disability,
Right.
but that is something those are lessons that
makes
you had to learn.
Yeah.
That's part of you. That's how you are. You have a story. How he got blind in one eye is a story that he has, and it's lessons that he learned. Oh, if I do this happens.
Right.
I mean, you can't, and some people hold on to that and be really super angry about it. And grief is the same way. So you can look at how an event happens, and you can be really, really angry about it. And it can make you a really, really hard person. Or you can look at it in a different way. Okay, well, this was really super traumatic, and I'm so sorry that they're gone. But even though they're physically not here, it doesn't mean I can't talk to them. And it doesn't mean they can't play a song for me on the radio.
Oh, good point.
Leave you a feather or a dime.
Or leave me a feather and a dime. Yeah. I mean, or numbers.
Yeah. I'm a big, if I see numbers, I'm like, ooh,
Okay.
that means something to me. You know, like certain numbers.
Yep.
Definitely.
I tell you what, just quickly, because I know you've got so much great information. Lynn, when we're talking to some of the families that we talk to, and they're going through that horrific death, tragedy, and like you had described it before, that heart being torn out and stomped into the ground. And you've got those signs, but what else in your teachings, how would you, what advice would you have for those families? Because they don't get to think about that body and how it served its purpose and everything.
And honestly, I have been very fortunate to never, I've witnessed it, but I've never had to go through it, which are very different things.
Yes.
Correct.
And every person is different. So there's not one size fits all. I mean, and it's where you're at in the grief process, really, because some people have made peace with the fact that, and it's hard. I mean, death is hard. I mean, my kids went to bed, knowing that their dad was there, and they woke up and he wasn't there.
Yes.
My mom had stage 4 cancer. I knew that was coming.
Okay.
So that grief is really very different. And going through an illness and knowing what the end is going to be, some people use that time to prepare, and some people are in great denial, and they're like, nope, this isn't going to happen. We're going to be the 1 in a million, and we're going to be that one. And it's devastating, like absolutely devastating when that happens. And anger typically follows devastation.
Okay.
So it really depends on where you are and what happened. I can give you oh, life is a choice and it's what you make of it. And you have to reframe how you look at things. But in that moment,
you don't want to hear that.
You don't. And
Right.
you can be mad. You have every right
It's your
in the
journey.
world to be mad. And you can be mad for a really long time because children are gifts and they're beautiful and they're so innocent and they did nothing.
Right.
Sometimes we'll rationalize, well, they died because they made really bad choices.
Right.
Well, she's 2 and that's
Right.
not fair. And it's not fair. And 100% you are correct. So I think validation, I think the other thing that's really hard too, and this falls on everyone that has not lost a child.
Okay.
Listen.
Oh, yes.
Listen and talk about the child.
Yes, that's our big thing.
That's our message too. Yes.
You see that star emblem.
Yep.
Recognize that.
Yep. Ask.
Because yes.
Because they want to know that their child mattered. They want to know that their child was on this earth and that someone else was here to witness it. And
Yes.
that's it.
Yes.
The One Bright Star Memorial is a block away from my house, and my dogs and I walk around it all the time. And there are times when I just walk by and I really don't think much. But the other day, and for some reason, I know some of the kids that are there.
yes.
And I think when you see the pictures and you see the stories and you see some of the ages, it's very humbling.
It is.
And I think there's a certain reverence that you have to give that, and you also need to give to the parents because they chose this path, in my belief, whether their physical body didn't know.
Right.
But they contracted with their child's soul to be their parents.
Right.
And it would be super easy for me to say, oh, you have to look at it as an honor, that they were your child and that they lived and that they chose you. And that will make some people feel really great for about 3 minutes. And it's going to want to make other people throw tomatoes at me. And I'm very aware of that. And and that's grief.
Right.
I mean, that is grief, and grief is not the same for everyone, and there's no time limit.
Yes.
Right.
And yes, you do have a choice every day to get up and be super salty and just be angry that this happened, or you can be thankful that it happened and try to figure out how to use it going forward.
That's a really good way to look at it. And
Yes.
other people have talked about that, how we are going to honor our child and remember them and try to take something, I don't even want to say something good, but try to make something positive out of such a horrific tragedy.
And that could be something as simple as acknowledging that star where you might not have 2 years ago,
Right.
and then all of a sudden you have one, and how not compassionate you were 2 years ago, and that level of compassion that you might now have. And that might be your lesson.
Before
Yes.
One Bright Star, I had child death was just taboo.
Yep.
Right.
Totally taboo. And it, like I've told Alicia before, it really opened my eyes and like
It
brought me back to perspective.
and it makes you grateful every day for, yes, you
Yep.
can always find something to be grateful for. We have other people talk about finding joy, making a joy list. There's just so many things, and you have so much to share. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes.
It's been wonderful.
It has been wonderful. All right. Well, that's it for today. And we will definitely bring Lynn back because I just stared at you like with my mouth open, like, wow, you're pretty amazing.
Well,
And-
it's a conscious effort. I mean, you have to know that too. It's a conscious effort. Sometimes getting out of bed and being nice to someone is all you can do that day.
Well,
Right.
sometimes I'm that way.
Aren't we all?
Yes.
Yeah. Like,
We all have that,
so,
but
yes. All right. Thank you so much, Lynn. I appreciate you. All right. Until next time, One Bright Star's Life After Loss podcast.
Thanks for listening to One Bright Star's Life After Loss podcast. Life After Loss is a copyrighted production of One Bright Star. One Bright Star's Life After Loss podcast is sponsored by the law firm of Burkholtz and Associates. For more information on the lifelong journey after losing a loved one, please visit our website at onebrightstar.org.